everyone, welcome to this week's Down the Rabbit Hole. This week we are talking about another quilt from Material Obsession 2. Yes, we're still on Material Obsession 2. There's a lot of quilts in there. This quilt is called Fruit Tingles, and it was designed because I was absolutely in love with this fabric. This peony fabric, K-facet fabric, I think you can still get this colourway. I'm pretty sure it's one of the ones that they sort of kept forever and ever. It came into the shop on a bolt and I just about died. I wanted to just unfurl the whole thing and roll around in it. The colours are just the most beautiful thing, in my opinion. And I was determined I was going to make a quilt out of them. And I couldn't decide what would be worthy. I wanted huge pieces of this fabric everywhere. But I couldn't figure out how to make, a relatively complex quilt and still keep this beautiful flower intact. And I was trying to think of all of the different things that the colours in this fabric reminded me of. And one of the things that it reminded me of was one of my favourite lollies when I was a kid, which was Fruit Tingles. They look like this. And they're still available. And when you eat them, if you've never had one, I don't know if they have them in America. I know they have them in England. When you eat them, they're like little discs of sherbet. They sort of, if you chew them up, they're sort of chalky. But if you let them dissolve on your tongue, they fizz. They fizz right up in your mouth. And I used to love sucking them until you had a hole through the middle. And then if you were really, really careful, you could put it on your finger like a ring. These things that we do when we're children. And they come in all of these beautiful pastel colours in a long tube. So that was what kind of sent me off on this journey. So then I decided I'd make a double wedding ring quilt. And curve piecing is not my thing, peeps. I applique, my machine piecing is great. I don't enjoy curve piecing, I just don't. Some people love things, some people don't. Curve piecing is one of the things I really don't enjoy very much. And so I actually started this quilt as a traditional double wedding ring with the big curved pieces, and I just hated it. I got about 3 blocks in and went, no, I'm not making this. This is not happening. And so then I decided I would look for something else. And I came upon a version of something like this that had like a zigzag. There were big, long, thin pieces and they had little zigzag things. And I was like, that looks like the fizzes of the sherbet. So I drew this ellipse up, and the idea was that you've sucked your fruit tingle and here's the hole you can put your finger in. And that's kind of where I came to. So I've pulled all of the colours out from the blocks. So we've got red blocks and green blocks and yellow blocks and blue blocks. And they've all been pulled out to make all of the different colours in the fizzy. And then in the centre, I was still able to keep my huge, beautiful pieces. Now, because I don't like curve piecing, I also decided when I made this quilt that what I would do is to have a huge square and applique the ellipses onto the corners of the squares, cut the excess away, and then applique that onto the next piece. So these are appliqued, they're not curve pieced. If you wanted to make this quilt, you could easily curve piece them in if you're somebody who loves curve piecing. I am not that person, but if you wanted to do that, you absolutely could. Now, the other thing that I decided was that because I was appliquing, it wasn't nearly so easy to get everything to come into the right spot in the centre, because obviously things wanted to shift on big pieces. And also both the Material Obsession books were supposed to be quilts to learn on. They were supposed to be quilts to learn new things, to try new things. And so I didn't want to intimidate anybody by having heaps and heaps of perfect tiny, tiny little things that you had to match up. So I introduced my little spotties in there. And not only do they hide the points so that you don't have to be absolutely perfect with your piecing, but they also then allow this to float really beautifully. So I've got that little extra strip of the background fabric in here so that all of the blocks just float inside of that extra little border. All of the fabrics that I've got in this little square border are all fabrics that I used in the blocks. So I've literally just cut the scraps up from making those, put them into here. And then I've obviously used the same piece of fabric for the border so that again, it all just looks like it's hanging in space, in midair. These blocks are foundation paper pieced. Don't be intimidated by that. If you've never done FPP before, this is probably some of the easiest FPP you'll ever do, because all you're doing is sewing a straight line and flipping it open, essentially. So what this is doing, you're going to cut rectangles and then sew it and flip, sew it and flip, sew it and flip all the way along. It's very, very simple. And then you trim this back to peanut lips. So if you're worried about doing foundation paper piecing, this is the easiest foundation paper piecing that you'll ever be able to do. It's no weird things to match your size of fabric or anything like that. It all just fits together. So this is just a beautiful, beautiful quilt. I love it. What haven't I talked about? I haven't talked about the corners. So the corners were just a way for me to I was going to round them and do all sorts of fancy things. And then I was like, you know what? I think I'm labouring the point. So instead I just designed those little fan out corners. And again, I've literally just used anything that I've used in here. I've brought out into the borders so that everything just all tied together. As scrappy as my scrappy quilts go, where I usually use, you know, if I can use 50 greens, I'll use 50 greens. This is not particularly scrappy, but it's fairly scrappy. And again, as I love to do in here, we've got Japanese fabric, we've got K-facet, we've got, this is a textured linen, there's an old check, there's some little spots, there's reproduction fabric, there's Amy Butler. This is a 1930s print. Like, you know, if it's red, it works. Don't be worried about what's printed on it, which as a fabric designer, I really shouldn't say, but don't be worried too much about what's printed on it. Worry more about the fact that you've got your light yellows in here, your dark yellows or more to oranges out there. Same goes for here, lights and darks, lights and darks. What matters is the color that they are when you look at this quilt as a whole, not that every single fabric matches and is absolutely perfect and everything. You can only make a quilt out of, you know, K-facets or whatever. You can throw everything in there. Just go for it. Have a good time. Thanks so much, peeps. As always, this quilt is available as a PDF or a paper pattern. There are no templates for this quilt, so that part is not applicable this week. And if you're lucky enough to have a copy of Material Obsession 2, you'll find it in there. Thanks so much. See you next week.